Okay, it looks like we're
Yes.
live. Hopefully we're live on the right channel this time. For those of you who missed the introduction, this is the Backdrop weekly meeting for August 20th. We've gone through some of the agenda already. I don't know if it's worth redoing introductions. No, okay. We're just going to jump back into the core issues, which is where we were reviewing issues for Backdrop Core. We started with issue number 4167, supplemental style sheets, and asked for more feedback. There are a bunch of people who weighed in on that early. Now there are pull requests to review. And then we have a handful of issues that need work, including update.php throwing a potentially dangerous error that is instruction that is incorrect. That issue is 3846. We have issue to restore the views page by date pager. It's number 2766. Looks like that one also could use some feedback. We're trying to decide whether it belongs in the core date module or could be safely moved to the calendar module instead. And then we have the CK editor not saving in source mode. And I think that one was a little tricky because in modals it seems to be a problem, but not in modals it doesn't. And then we have one issue that still needs testing and code review, and that's when your site gets stuck in maintenance mode after doing something like a module update. So that issue could use review, testing. And then I have an issue here for PHP CS automated code checks 3213. Joseph, do you have an update for us on that one this week?
I haven't made a lot of progress since last week. I think the next step is we need 3.x branches in the related repositories so that we can actually merge the stuff in.
Okay. So I also got really confused about all of this branch numbering stuff because maybe this is worth talking about. The coder module for Drupal works on multiple versions of Drupal. So it works on Drupal 8, works on Drupal 7, works on Drupal 9, and there's no branch, there's only one branch. And that version of coder runs on PHP CS 3.1, I think. And so I didn't know, like our usual process with branch numbering is to match Drupal's branch numbering, especially if there's like a 7.x 4.2, the Backdrop version that contains all the same code as 7.x 4.2 would be called 1.x 4.2, which makes sense. But in this case, because there's one version that doesn't match the Drupal 7 version, doesn't match Drupal 8 version, and it's semantically versions, it's just like 8 dot something dot something. I didn't really know how we wanted to handle branch numbering for Backdrop, because we could have a version that also runs on PHP CS 3.1 that was numbered 8 dot whatever dot whatever. But that could be confusing because it's 8. Or we could just throw out Drupal's version numbering and start our own. Like right now, the branch that's on there is like a 1.x branch. Maybe we just say, forget matching Drupal and call it a 2.x branch and make like breaking changes. But then there isn't going to be any way to tell whether we've included any of the fixes that are in the Drupal version in the Backdrop version or not. So I don't know. I left a whole bunch. I originally was like, I think we should do this. And then I did a bunch of research and I'm like, I have no idea what we should do anymore. So I left a bunch of issues in the queue that was like, should we do this? Should we do this? I think maybe we should leave it up to the maintainer to figure out how to manage that. But I didn't know if anyone here had any thoughts sort of on community-wide standards versus
To make things worse. I'm not sure if it touches. I'm not sure if it touches us, but Drupal have changed their versioning scheme so that they don't include the major version like no.8.x or 9.x. They might just go to a version 13 or whatever of the module.
So I think, yeah, that is a little weird because I don't know if there's going to be a lot of stuff we need to include from the Drupal versions because our coding standards have diverged from theirs. So that's, I don't know if that'll affect us at all.
The Drupal 8 version of that module runs on Drupal 7 with Drupal 7's coding standards too, and it runs on PHP CS 3.1. And we do need the PHP
Does
CS
it like,
stuff.
does it check which version of Drupal you're running and use different coding standards rules?
I think so.
Mm,
So I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if it's worth, like, because we don't actually have a version of the coder project for Backdrop. We only have the sub modules that were in it. Maybe it's not even worth worrying about matching versions, and we can like sort of pick and choose the stuff we need from the Drupal version and put it in the Backdrop version, and maybe just document it in like the README file or something where the divergences are. But yeah, it seems like the Drupal versioning is a bit of a mess and the Backdrop versioning is a lot of a mess. And I'm not sure whether trying to make the Backdrop version match the Drupal version is going to improve anything at all. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe we can, I think Doc Wilmot's maintainer for that module. Maybe we can ask him what he thinks.
Yes.
Because I ran around in circles like 5 times last week and was like, oh, what we should do on that.
If we wanted to make like versions based on which version of PHP-CS we're supporting in it, then that could be an easy way to separate things out.
Yeah, except for that I don't think like anyone's going to be like, oh, I choose to run on PHP CS1 if there's a PHP CS3 option.
So the
Well,
three,
the-
does the 3
big-
option work on PHP 5?
It works on 5.4. It does not work on 5.3.
5.3, yeah. So
It's
there's the reason
CentOS.
why, yeah, that's the reason why you would choose the earlier version, 1.x or 2.x. Is 2.x also not working on 5.3 or
There's
just
no
3?
There is a 2.x version of
PHP
Code Sniffer, but I don't know. I haven't done any work to make it supported.
Yeah, there's no reason.
There's actually a 4.x version came out since I initially started that work in March.
There you go. Start clean slate in Backdrop and call it 4.x on.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like yeah, it would be good to have a conversation with Doc Wilmot and see what he thinks, because I think also when he first created Coder Review for Backdrop, we had not yet adopted the like must match Drupal versioning pattern. And so he might have his own thoughts on like, you know, where we're now, what he might want to do with that project. But it might also help Joseph. I haven't seen him around a lot lately. If you wanted to be a co-maintainer on that project, as long as you got his approval and made sure that you knew what he wanted, that might help move things along faster. So I don't know if that's something you want, but it might help figure out, if you need a new branch and he's not around to help add the branch, that might help.
All right, then I could just make it. Yeah, Jeff gave me commit access to his repository. So I can do that there, but I kind of want to do it at the same time as the module repository so that I can keep everything in sync.
Yeah, I think we should probably just get rid of his, because it's going to confuse everybody because it's the wrong name.
But it's what we get when we use Composer.
Yeah, we can fix that too, though. And it's not like, it's what you get when you ask for coder, and there is no coder. So you shouldn't get anything when you ask for coder, but that's right.
No, there is coder because it's on the Composer website as Backdrop Coder.
Right.
Because your Composer name doesn't have to line up with your repository name.
Okay, well then we either need to change that or we need to get rid of it. So I think that like in Backdrop land, I don't know, we don't have a coder. Like there is no coder for Backdrop. So nobody should be trying to include anything called coder with Composer for Backdrop. But if we wanted to fix the problem that's there, we would remove whatever thing Composer found that thinks that it's pointing at Jeff's thing, which is also wrong, and point it at the contributed module for Coder Review. That would also work, but I think it would probably make more sense. Long-term people aren't going to be using Coder with Backdrop. They should do a Composer or require Coder Review or something. But Either way, just because it's temporarily broken doesn't mean we need to keep it broken long term. I don't know how to fix it
Okay.
though. So
It's technically not broken.
okay, I meant wrong. Just because everything is wrong currently doesn't mean it's to stay wrong. What a mess. I don't know. It made my head hurt. Okay.
I have no idea what you're talking about. That's okay.
Yeah, neither do I anymore.
So
Okay, so I think that was,
essentially, the long story is that when Doc ported the coder module, he split it out into 2 modules, one for review and one for
yeah, so
and
there
then
wasn't really
Jeff, and then Jeff forked the coder review module and made a coder library on his account. You're muted. Oh, I muted?
no,
we can hear you.
My dad just came in and said I muted, but I don't know. Anyway,
we can hear you.
so he forked it and made just a coder, which is just the PHP-CS files, and then added that on Composer's website. I don't remember the actual URL, but so if you type Composer require backdrop coder, it gets that repository.
Okay.
You get a forked version, an unsupported forked version of a project that doesn't exist.
But
Instead of
but it does exist, and he did that on purpose because he wanted one that didn't include the module.
right,
because-
which doesn't make any sense because all of the work is happening in the module.
If you want to run it from the command line, though, none of that is relevant.
But I mean, I don't
Which
know,
is-
if you want something that has bug fixes in it rather than the one that's buggy, wouldn't you want the one that people are working on?
He keeps everything in sync, so like he can just do a git pull in it and it syncs up. So I don't know. It is technically the same project.
It is a really terrible process for open source contribution. That is the problem.
That is the standard GitHub process.
Does work on the backdrop contrib project and not on some random person's fork of the project. So it's a bit of an issue.
I don't know. I make pull requests to random people's repositories all the time. So
That's not how it works for backdrop contrib though, because we all share. It's not, nothing's owned by anyone. It's all owned by backdrop community.
no, but I don't know. Things get weird sometimes when you want to actually like keep the Git history correct.
Wouldn't be an issue if there was only one Git history.
Are we getting in the weeds
Anyway.
here?
Let's move on.
Yes.
Everything is a mess. We don't know how to fix it. We need Doc Wilmot to help. Okay, weekly project review 1.7. So I don't think there's a lot of updates since last week. Doc Wilmot asked for us to discuss the support for custom contexts issue.
So I have a thought.
Yes.
Because yes, he wanted to talk about that, and this seemed well. I think, so correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that from Doc Wilmot's perspective, he's basically looking for code review from a core committer. So
Yeah.
so that's the big thing he needs. But I still feel like we have a basic understanding problem. I have the PR open right now. Could we look at it together as a group?
Sure.
Just talk about what it's
Yeah.
doing, and maybe that will help me understand it. I'm willing to do a screen share. And let's just look at it briefly. And okay, so here, screen share, boom, share. Oops. That's it. So I think I basically, this is the pull request. I went to the create a new layout page. And this is really the UI for what we're talking about, right? But
Yeah.
I understand there might be a lot more going on than what I'm seeing. Can somebody talk about what this feature
So
does? Go ahead.
There's a few from a UX perspective, sort of like new user coming at this perspective. If you added a path previously,
Mhm.
that would be it. But now you have that add context button there, link, which allows you to add further contexts which would not have been available to you otherwise. Oh yeah, that's a no problem. You need to select a layout template as well before you do anything. Still gonna complain. Yeah. Yeah.
So can I do it now, or do I have to do a path?
No, you have to. Yeah, that's the thing. So you need to add that first.
Okay.
Yep. And now, normally you wouldn't have that option, but now you have that option there.
Right.
You can add custom. Yeah. You can add the user for example, the term thing, and then you can select the term ID.
Okay. And, well, I don't know if I have a term ID one, so it might complain, but it didn't. Okay, so now what did that do for me?
Okay, so adding the node percent context, it's pulling the node ID from the URL. So on any given node page, you have access to like all of the fields data for that particular node. But what you've done by attaching taxonomy term with an ID of 1 means that on every node page, you now also have access to all of the field data for only that one taxonomy term.
Okay.
So you've essentially made it so you could pull out and place fields for that term anywhere on.
Is this compatible to creating a relationship in views?
Sort of. The views relationship would depend more on like the percent than the ID. Like usually you're saying like, oh, it's a pattern that you apply rather than here you just added like one context. Like this is a context for only a single term, or a relationship in views would be like for any node get a related term. So it's not always the same term that you're adding to a node page.
Okay, and I can always, if I'm adding a second context, it's always going to be to a specific term, a specific UI, a specific user. It's not.
That's the UI we have now only supports that. It would be adding a single one. So like if you made a landing page at like /welcome and it's not a node page, but you have a node with a bunch of welcome data on it. You're like, oh, I wish I had access to that data on this landing page. You could attach node 6, which is your welcome node, to your landing page, which is your welcome page that doesn't have any node data on it. So you can't just kind of tie together content with a specific piece of content to any page on your site or any pattern of pages like node percent.
All the fields of that piece of content, for example, would be available on every node. So you could add, I don't know, the body field or an image field of the post with ID, whatever, on every other node or something. So I think that the reason why you and I used to have so much trouble sort of like getting our heads around it is that we didn't have a real world use case for it. Like we never used it in that way, so we can't get our heads around it. But there were people that were actually using that a lot. It's easier for them to understand.
So Dacoma,
is it supposed to?
Yep.
Is it supposed to allow you to create relationships, like if you have a reference field? No.
There is another pull request that Dacoma's been working on that allows relationships, and it's another plus relationship option, just like there's a plus context here that would allow you to say like pull the node ID from, or pull a term ID from a node's field, and then it can, that way on any node you do get the same kind of relationship as you would get in a views relationship, where it's a more dynamic. So it's not always term 1. If we term 1 on
it's
node
not
1,
fixed like this one is.
What was that?
So
it's not fixed like this one is. This one allows you to specify a fixed one, and then that would allow you to specify a dynamic one.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what Doc Will mentioned as well, that he says he wants to get this done and then he'll move on to relationship. I think he mentioned that in Zulip chat.
Part of why I'm grappling with understanding this is for me to, and I just like feedback on this, right? If we don't, let's say, it's been argued that this is to sort of not worry about the UI so much and just focus on the underlying functionality. But does that mean that we've still got this new add context button? And if, do we want to add a button to add a context if 90% of our users aren't going to understand that button? Or do we need to, before we commit this, come up with some good help text that actually makes this understandable?
So contexts are equally hard or a little bit harder than views to understand. Views UI has a really complicated interface.
Yep.
But you cannot actually remove or simplify things, because then you sort of like deprive the power of views from the people that are, site builders that want to build certain stuff. What we have is follow-up issues that are related to that would be more helpful to novice users, which would be contextual links to create a layout directly from a piece of content, or from a content type, which are follow-up issues that are not directly related to this, but are related to the what you are bringing up, that this is not easily understandable by novice users.
Okay, so I can understand where we sometimes might want to add a feature, even if it's not easy to understand. But I think, part of our commitment to Backdrop is to keep this as simple as possible. I mean, what's going through my head right now is then could we at least hide it in bracket it with something that says advanced user, right? So that if you're a beginner and you're looking, because right now, the problem when I look at this page right now is I see this button and I think I should understand that, and I don't, and that bothers me. If it said, this is an advanced feature, right? Use with care, then I might just, okay, I'll just ignore that because I'm not advanced, right? Or something. But the fact, right now it deceives me because it's making me think I should understand it and I don't.
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest downsides to panels is that all of this functionality with context and relationship and everything was sort of right in everyone's face. And it was something that made panels seem really confusing and overwhelming. And part of redoing the user interface in Backdrop to get rid of all that was to make it a lot more friendly. I feel like by adding contexts and relationships back immediately in the UI, we are sort of defeating some of that purpose. And I wonder if there might be a in-between step here where like maybe there's a setting for layouts that enables the user interface for context and relationships. So there'd be a checkbox would be like allow additional context or something, and then this plus button appears, and without it we have the same UI we had before.
Right.
And then
Could
that way,
could we just have a field set at the bottom of it that's collapsed
Exactly.
by default?
Exactly, because that's what we're doing with views. We're hiding all the advanced settings in an advanced field set, and that's it.
no,
Yes, at the very end.
But in Backdrop,
Well, on views it's open by default.
yeah.
But here we would say it's
Okay.
closed by default.
At least it denotes that it's an advanced setting, right?
The problem with the collapsed field set here is that there are contexts that are related to the path that you enter. And so when you type in node/%, it's useful to show people that, there's now a node context there, because it starts to build that underlying concept of contexts. And I think that if we hid the add context button in a collapsed field set, we would also probably want all of the context information in there. But I think that there's value in having the automatic contexts added and shown to people. So I'm not that was my first thought too. I was like, let's just hide it. And then my second thought was, let's put like visibility conditions first. And then I realized that those path and context really sort of need to be next to each other. And the automatic context completion, there's also value in showing people that that's getting done for them, so they don't need to do it on their own. So I don't know that means we shouldn't do it. That was just like my whole thought process.
Right.
I'm not sure if I've linked those issues from, there's this issue in the queue that you raised, Tim, the one about better help text for layout path field. So that's issue 4555, and then I've linked a couple of issues there. The one that I wanted to bring up is 2618. So Doc Wilmot has provided a few screenshots there. So who's sharing the screen now? Is it you, Tim?
Oh, yeah.
So if you can bring that issue up a bit, it's 2618. This is an idea of simplifying the path selection whole thing and bringing it together. So if you scroll it's there. Yeah, so there's a series of screenshots which sort of like simplifies the path selection so that it makes sense to novice users. So instead of asking them to type the node %, they actually select things.
Yep.
We can move towards that, but it doesn't mean that this needs to block what Document has already worked on, which is a more advanced thing. We do, for comparison, we do a similar thing with views. So views has the, what is it called? The first step where it's you don't have to go into the advanced settings. You just have the wizard, the views wizard, which allows you to create quickly a page, select a few things, and that's it. So it could be something like that.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I don't want to hold this issue up. It sounds like it's an important and useful issue.
Yes, it is.
And even if we left everything the same, but just put a little bit of help text underneath this little plus button that said, you know, that gave me a little bit of information, like this is an advanced feature, use, you know, or pointed to some, you know, I know we have a separate issue for documentation. If we at least got some really basic documentation up and a link to it or something, but you know, I'm just nervous about just adding that without doing anything.
Could you
Jen,
click on it real quick?
Oh, can I click on it?
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Oh, actually, yeah, that maybe that's an, you know, well, working on this. I mean,
Maybe that should be moved out.
well, right, or a link provided in here that gives you more information. I don't know that this by itself was enough for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're sort of like help text doesn't help if there's too much of it, because people will only read like the first 80 characters or something and stop. And it also, if you have a bunch of help text, the initial impression is that this is hard. And I feel like, I think I'm more tempted to go Tim's direction, like not put it on the page unless you're that minority of people that need it, rather than putting it on the page and then trying to explain it in a way that, like, contexts are really complicated. In order to explain them clearly, you can't do that in one or two sentences, as is made clear by the description, and they're not being sufficient. I don't know. I feel like maybe.
how would you feel about, I know that vertical tabs are supposed to be used to hold secondary sort of like information, but yeah, how would you feel if context and visibility conditions were moved to their own individual vertical tabs in this UI? Because visibility conditions is the thing that most people understand. Like, it's easy for people to understand that I built a layout, I want it to appear there, there, and there, and that's it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like context still needs to go near path. So if it were in vertical tabs, it would need to be the first one. And
yes,
because people don't use it very,
I'm actually,
now
yeah,
they're
compared to the
into visibility and to add those, which they do use.
yeah, so I was asking that in the context of the previous issue, the screenshot that we had there. So eventually the plan would be to hide the path so that people do not need to manually enter. Advanced users would manually enter a node / whatever. Novice users would just have a drop down which would say nodes, comments, users, simple cases. That's what we do. So I want the context added automatically. I know that it doesn't. That's what we do with views. Like, if you start creating a view now, you will see that we have a very oversimplified version of the view that says, I would like to create a block, a page, whatever, and I wanted to show content of type X, and that's it. And then you have the option to either just save it and that's it, or tweak it more.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this already is the wizard. And when
yeah, but it's the opposite. It's the opposite though. It gives you the advanced options and instead of the simplified ones.
It doesn't right now. Like right now, it gives you only the things you care about, like path, visibility conditions, and only context when you have one. And so what we're doing by adding context and add relationship options is we're adding more things into the wizard.
So all of the panel settings are still there in the back end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we have is a system where we have a wizard but no advanced options.
Right. And so what DocWillMont's doing is adding back all of these advanced options that exist in an API, but haven't had a UI in Backdrop. Or theoretically existed. They're sometimes commented out. So there might not even be APIs for them.
I still feel that because I've expressed that in the past, that this UI here is exposing developer notions to users. And I've expressed that like in we're now in the 4,000 some issues. I expressed it when it was like the thousands, the first thousands of issues that this is thinking as a developer and then exposing that in the UI just and the goal, the simple goal would be, so a simple user would say, I want to create a layout for all my content. So that's what he would select. He wouldn't think that I want a layout with that path or that context. He would say, I want layout for my content. And then I would like to add a visibility condition that say only for pages or only for posts. So now we're doing the opposite. We are asking people to just do the advanced thing. That's why I mentioned before that this is the advanced thing.
I don't think we're going to solve this today. So my suggestion would be, and DocWillMont's probably going to watch this later, and been a little bit helpful. I feel like this is, I'm convinced this is a valuable feature. We need to get it in, and let's not let this stuff hold it up, but let's also figure out how to start making this page better. And I wonder if like we shouldn't have like a meeting, maybe in the next release cycle early on that just like talks about the bigger problems here. Focus on getting this in now, not holding it up, and then making a concerted effort later to say, okay, now let's start really focusing on making this page easier to use. And
but it's really easy to understand what we're doing here with regards to UX, not the actual goal of this page, what I was referring to, because if you think why people are coming to this place is like they want to create a layout for their pages, and immediately we say, all right, give it a name. All right, they understand that. Decide how it's going to look like, what it's structured. It has pretty images. Yes, they can select that. And then we go contexts. They go, wait a minute, what's that? Whereas if we gave them an option, I would like to create a layout for my content, like the screenshots that DocWillMont has on that other issue. I want to create it for user pages or for taxonomy terms or for comments. This is something that they can relate to. And advanced users can say, no, I don't want this simple select list. I want the advanced options so that I can specify a path, complex, custom contexts, and so on and so forth. But novice users would, I imagine, want to create things that they understand or layouts for things that they understand.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think what DocWillMont really wanted was to get somebody to do a code review and help him with the underlying code. So, and I don't know if any of us here can help him with that today, but
no.
But let's.
Nate left a few comments in the pull request because I looked at like earlier today.
Yep.
And there's 3 comments I think, and one of them DocWillMont has responded, but there's another 2.
Okay.
I'm not sure if DocWillMont is aware, but maybe he was seeking some more code reviews from either Herb or Peter or Jeff, I guess.
Okay. Maybe we should move on if we have anything else.
Yeah. Well, there's always more things to discuss.
Let's see. So admin theme for a login form. That was something that opened up a whole can of worms. I bumped the milestone to 118 because we aren't going to get all of the related problems resolved before 117 is done. If that also ends up being a problem when we get done with 17, I might remove the milestone entirely. We'll see how people feel about it. The next one. One of the related issues to getting an admin theme on the login form was removing the view administration theme permission, which was something that was added for overlay, which we don't have anymore. I have a pull request there that needs some work on it, number 4047 issue. Next issue, this one I really like, number 706 we'll add a htaccess file to protect files in config directories from being browsed. We had originally set up the hash on the config directory name as sort of like you can't find it, so you can't see them. But a htaccess file would prevent any server running Apache from actually allowing those files to be found, even if you did know the name of that directory, which I think is great. So that is listed as also needing testing and code review, issue 706. So it's an old one too, which is good.
Dare I sneak a new one in there? 3651-59, lazy loading for images, or needs more discussion?
Oh, I like this one too.
Repeat the number, issue number.
So it's validated in the agenda. It's 3659. Oh, yep.
So this is an issue that there is a new attribute for image tags. I think it's like loading equals lazy or something that makes it so that browsers that have native lazy loading support somehow, big mouthful, will load those images lazily. And this was something that I think I noticed a long time ago when I was trying to make one of my slow backdrop sites run faster. And I was like, oh my gosh, we should do this everywhere. And so I created an issue and then I forgot about it. And now everybody else has found it and decided it's a good idea. Yay!
So the pull request was simpler than I thought, actually. So there were a few discussions of whether we should do it or not by default. And I think it was J.L. Franklin that was opposing as to it might cause issues with certain sprites or collapsed form fields. Anyways, so I've tested it on. So the things that would be broken or could be broken are system things, which are not like the way that I implemented it is on the images that we upload, which would not be your theme images, if that makes sense. It would be the content images. So if a site has a content type called a gallery and people are allowed to upload up to, I don't know, 10 photos, high quality photos, that means that it saves them time when these are loaded, and especially on mobile devices, it saves them bandwidth. So feedback that I would like on this pull request is like, I currently place the checkbox for that in the performance thing. Is that a good place?
I think so.
Elsewhere, things like that. Yeah.
And so this is, it changes just theme image. Is that right?
Yes, and subsequently theme image style, because theme image style actually uses that function.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's what I did too on my site. I think I just overrode theme image.
Yep. And yeah, so if there's a global switch that people can just disable that, and this will only be applied to new sites, like all sites would have to opt in for that. So I have no update hook, unless people think that I should.
I think it makes sense to enable it by default on new sites, but leave it disabled on current sites. That way, people like me that have already added it won't have an issue.
So I can't remember which issue it was during previous minor release. I think that BW Panda here just came up with an awesome feature. It was last couple of weeks before the release. And we snuck it in. We thought, oh, we're not going to have many features. There you go.
That's a good one.
I actually thought that this would be trickier, but it's not.
It doesn't have a milestone on it.
Yes, that's what I said. So in the code reviews, there's around 5 issues in the queue that have the milestone tag, but not milestones. And I think I shouldn't be adding milestones to issues that I have created the pull request or I raised myself. So I need someone else to just comment.
Okay. Well, I also created that issue, so I can't do it either.
Team?
I will do it.
Thank you.
Based on advice from trusted.
Do you want to be its
Should we-
advocate, Gregory?
Sorry.
Do you want to be its advocate?
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Should we have a test that checks image tags while that setting is turned off?
So what I've done is I've updated the current tests so that this is tested conditionally on whether that's enabled or disabled. We can repeat the same tests once with that feature on and once with off. Would that suffice, you think?
Maybe. I think it might add a lot of time to the tests if we completely duplicate it. We could add a single test that would just have it, just set it to off and then do one of the previous tests rather than all of them.
Yeah.
Yep. Just randomly pick one.
Or just, yeah, just like turn it off and then check that that's not,
Yeah. So
not in one of the
Uh,
images.
working on that issue has made me file 4552. I think that the relevant tests they're checking unnecessarily. They're checking the structure of the image tag that is being generated when the test itself is for image styles. And we do check that the image has been resized, rotated, whatever it was, but then we check the entire image. So if we update those tests to just limit what we're actually testing, anyway, that's a follow. But still, we can adapt to this. I don't object to that.
What was the issue number again?
So the other issue that was one of that is 4552, and that's a DX issue. Just a comment on that. I asked it. I started it as a question because I wasn't sure. I see that the tests for these image styles are repeating the same routine. So what they're doing is they're applying the image style, and then they check the entire image tag that gets generated. Whereas what they should be checking, because that's the name of the test and the purpose of the test, is the width and the height of the image, that is the properties that have been added to the tag. If we want to test if the tag was properly generated, then we should use like native XML parser PHP functions to do that.
All right.
But that's a follow-up.
Interesting.
Because the actual image is being so that every single test does this routinely. It applies the style sheet. It checks the entire image tag that gets generated, whereas I propose that we only check the width and height attributes, and then it goes on grabbing whatever we have added in the image tag as the source and check the actual image to verify that the dimensions are proper, which is what I would expect this test to do, and that's it. So yeah, but I don't want that to hold up the other issue. That's why I filed the follow-up.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is one of the tickets where you start working and then you get into the rabbit holes, which are interesting rabbit holes.
Anything else we want to discuss today? We're over time.
Yeah.
So I would recommend we wrap up today's meeting. But yeah, if anything else pops up, we can chat on Tulip.
Well, yeah. I'm going to hang around for a few minutes after this too.
Yeah, I'm gonna hang out.
All right, I'm going to turn
All right,
off
cool.
the live stream.